Thank you for joining us here at Lowry Sports Rhetoric. I am your host, Nathan.
I'm Daimon.
And today we're going to continue going through the AFC. This is the AFC West division. Our first one in here is the Chargers. This is a division that I cannot wait to talk about. There is a whole lot to talk about.
We are about to have some fun talking about this division for this week. I think the Chargers is a great one to start with. He's a big Justin Herbert fan from the Oregon thing, so the Chargers got some Florida State guys. This is one of those teams we both kind of follow, not our favorite, but also follow and root for because of those college connections. And wow, This will start 4 in a row of some really interesting topics about how this conference in general improved, but specifically for today, this team did what they needed to do to improve. So let's get into it.
Okay, as he mentioned, look, honestly, this is my second favorite team and has been for the last 2 years because they drafted my boy Herbert, who is showing up and showing out. So last year they were 9-8. They ended up being the third in the AFC West. They didn't make the playoffs literally by a small margin. They lost to the Raiders. The Raiders advanced. Obviously, the Colts losing gave them the opportunity to win that, and then they didn't take it. They lost to the Raiders, which is another team that I think is pretty good. So last year they were 4th in yards offensively overall, 5th in points offensively overall. Them some good numbers for a guy who was second year in the league. Some pretty good control of that offense. Defensively, however, they were 23rd in yards allowed and 30th in points allowed. That's pretty rough.
Sounds like they needed to address that situation.
Sounds pretty rough.
Did they address that situation?
We'll get into that.
Oh.
Okay. So their GM is Tom Telesco, 2013 to now. That's 9 years. I've always thought that the Chargers were a pretty well-built, decent team, so I like their GM. I think he does a really good job of continuously building teams, and they're always right there. Unfortunately, they just haven't really busted into the game, but I think under him as a GM, they've done a really good job. Coach Brandon Staley, 2021 to present. That's 1 year. He's 9-8 overall record, which I thought he did a pretty good job in his first year there. So I'd be happy with him as well. Free agent additions.
Before you get into that, I just want to comment on the GM. So we talked about this before in some of the other videos about how, specifically the Steelers video, about how hard it is when you have this franchise guy that's possibly a Hall of Famer. That transition from one to the next. And, they were maybe a team that some people thought underperformed during the Phillip Rivers era.
I do.
But I think that GM did an excellent job of recognizing, like you talked about with the Steelers, they held on to Ben two years too long. It would have been easy for them to hang on to Phillip Rivers 2 years too long.
Yep.
But he recognized, okay, we got the opportunity to draft Herbert here. This is the time to move on. And he pulled the trigger and moved on. And I think that more than anything, you got to give him props for that. And that decision is the catalyst to lead to where they are now, which is this really good, exciting young team that, or not even young. They're a mixture of young and old, but like a team that's ready to compete for Super Bowls and has a nice window right now to compete for Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And had they held on to Rivers for 2 more years, which a lot of GMs would have done, then that doesn't happen.
Agreed. Totally.
So I just wanted to point that out. If I'm a Chargers fan, I'm thankful that he had the foresight and the guts to say we're moving on from the Hall of Famer and pulling the trigger on this kid when he did, because I think that really set up. That's not an easy call. You don't see it that often in the NFL, but it ended up being a great call that set up this opportunity to have the Super Bowl window that they're just starting and will be in for the next few years.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree. All right, free agent additions. We got J.C. Jackson, cornerback out of New England. He was an absolute freak over there in New England. I think that's a great addition. Daimon tends to think people are going to drop off when they come to the Patriots.
We talked about this during the Patriots video.
I think
there's a long history of DBs leaving the Patriots and not being as good at their next team as they were with the Patriots. This kid's got a lot of talent.
I think he's very talented.
Yeah. Look, the only reason I even bring it up is just because of that history and that skepticism. We saw it with several guys.
Well, all I can say is if he continues to play at the level he played, even if he has a little bit of a drop off, his level was so high. Even if he has a little bit of a drop off, he's still going to be a great addition to a team again that ended up in 30th in points allowed. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it should be an upgrade.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Absolutely.
But is he live up to that contract? Does he continue to be the player he was in New England?
Let's see.
I'm questioning that just only because of that history that New England has of having DBs go to other teams and not be as good on their new team as they were when they were with the Patriots.
All right, next is Sebastian Joseph, defensive tackle out of the Rams, from the Rams. Austin Johnson, defensive tackle out of the Giants. I think that those are absolutely, good depth additions there. Jared Everett, tight end out of Seattle. I think that was actually a really, really nice one.
Yeah, that should be a good solid tight end to give another target for your boy.
Yeah, and Josh Harris, LS is
long snapper.
Yeah, long snapper. Okay,
yeah.
Out of Atlanta.
That's the most important position on the football team, long snapper.
I mean, it is important.
It is important. Most of those guys stick around the league forever. They're usually like one of the older people on the team. Yeah. I mock it a little bit, but if they're not a good one,
it's important.
They can. It's one of those positions where it doesn't matter if you have a good one, but if you have a bad one, it matters. So I'm assuming the fact that he was already in Atlanta and they wanted him, that means he's probably a good one because you wouldn't pick up a bad one.
Yes. All right, Kyle Van Noy, inside linebacker out of New England. Obviously a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth. Went from Miami. They let him go, which I thought he was playing very well in Miami. Then he went to the Patriots, and I thought he played very well at the Patriots. But I get that the Patriots do this. It's not a surprise. It's not a shock that he signed for a year and then they let him go. I think he's still a great addition, even if he doesn't play as high a level as he has. Extremely smart guy. He's very much knows the game. Great veteran presence. I think that's a great addition as well.
Yeah, I think that addition more than anything is, he has a lot of playoff experience, like you said, veteran presence. He allows for them to have a rotation at their inside linebacker thing. Like he's not at the point of his career where he's going to go out there and play every snap.
No.
But you bring him in limited number of snaps, and he's going to be able to still get some things done out there. And any team that has two inside linebackers. Just like anything else, you really want that third guy. Like I've seen that when we've had our defense be the 3-4 defense.
Give him a little rest.
You need to have that third guy that can at least get in there and give you, a few snaps a game, because you can't have both inside linebackers play the entire time.
That's right. They're
just not as good in the fourth quarter when they do that. So I think, if anything, it gives you a really nice bench addition to. Give those start. If he doesn't claim a starting job, I don't think you have him down as a starter right now. If he might end up being a starter,
sure.
But if he doesn't, then it gives you a really good bench option for that rotation, which is important, especially, late in the season, playoff time. You got to have guys healthy. Having that rotation all the way throughout helps keep guys healthy. And for the fourth quarter, when it's time to win games, you want guys, to still have some juice. So I think that's an important, in that defense especially, that's important.
All right, Bryce Callahan, cornerback out of Denver.
Very familiar with him. Was with the Bears for a long time. He's, in my opinion, one of the better slot corners in the league. At some point, he's probably going to lose a step. But, you combine him with Jackson and their rookie from last year, and that's a heck of a corner, or heck of a, well, not to mention the safeties that they have. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, yeah, I think as a slot corner, you can't do much better than Bryce Callahan.
I mean, again, 30th in points allowed. They've got two cornerbacks on here that are good cornerbacks that they brought in. It's a great addition here. Morgan Fox, defensive end out of Carolina.
Not real familiar with him.
I'm not real familiar with him either. Makes me think it's most likely just some depth, and that's understandable. DeAndre Carter, wide receiver out of Washington. Again, that's definitely depth. Troy Reeder, linebacker out of the Rams. Also some depth there. Free agent losses. I'm going to mess this name up. Ukena Nwosu, linebacker, went to Seattle. Don't know much about him. Justin Jones, defensive tackle, went to Chicago.
Yeah, and I like this kid, but he was a backup for them. So they brought in two other defensive tackles. I'm assuming they will be on par with him. I'm excited about him being in a Bears uniform personally, but I can see why they let him walk because, we paid him to be a starter and he was a backup for them. So
okay. Kaiser White, outside linebacker from Philadelphia. I don't know much about him. Steven Anderson, tight end out of Arizona. Just some depth there.
Went to Arizona.
What?
These guys went. He went to Arizona.
I'm sorry, I keep saying that.
So Everett's an upgrade over him.
Right.
I mean, Everett's an upgrade over him.
Yeah, I'm really tired. Okay. Kyler Fackrell, outside linebacker to Vegas. To Vegas. See, did it right
I think they upgraded that position.
Yeah. Yes, they did. Yes, it
is. We'll be talking about that in a second.
Scott Quisenberry, center to Houston.
Okay. Which they slid a guard over to center, and then when we get to the draft, we'll talk about the replacement of that guard was a pretty solid pickup. So, I think all in all, when you look at who left and who they brought in, they had a net improvement between free agency and what they lost.
Oh, for sure.
A net improvement, for sure.
Definitely an improvement.
Especially in the secondary and that tight end position.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second here. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that's a really, really well done. Trades. Khalil Mack, outside linebacker from the Bears. And the Bears got a 2023 sixth and a 2022 second round.
Yep.
And I'm going to give my opinion real quick before you give yours.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Khalil Mack, he's kind of taken a couple steps back, it seems like, maybe a little bit play-wise. But he still performed at a decent level, and I think he's a great addition for a team that has a good defense. You know what I mean? I think he can come in as long as he's not having to be one of the main people. I think that he can still, and who knows, he might be able to get back to the level that he played before as well. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it, he was often injured for us. I don't know that we got the return on investment that we were hoping for him.
Doesn't seem that way.
However, saying that, he doesn't have to be Khalil Mack.
That's right.
Because of a guy named Joey Bosa.
That's right.
And if Khalil Mack, even the injured lesser version that we've seen with Chicago, is your second best pass rusher, you're a sick pass rushing team. Period.
Yeah.
Because, he didn't put the sacks up for us that we were hoping for. But what he did do was he provided pressure.
A lot.
He takes double teams. You're not going to double team. So this is a lot of what, like, Robert Quinn for us had, like, broke our team sack record last year. Part of that was because of Khalil Mack.
That's right.
So you're not going to stop double teaming Joey Bosa to double team Khalil Mack.
As a matter of fact, you would probably double team Joey Bosa before you would double
team.
No,
that's my point. So Khalil Mack, for us, was often injured, always double teamed, sometimes triple teamed. That's not going to happen with Joey Bosa on the other side of the field.
No.
It's not.
No.
So I think there's a good chance that the Chargers get what the Bears were hoping to get from Khalil Mack. I think that was a trade that made a lot of sense for both teams. We needed to move on from him. We needed to get rid of his, not for this year, but for the future, get rid of his salary. You would have hoped to get better than a second round pick back. Now for the Chargers, he will be a great second round pick. He will provide something that a second round pick never would have been able to provide.
I do agree with you. I think that the value there was really good.
And like I said, paired with Bosa, even an older, like late career Khalil Mack is still going to get a bunch of sacks. I think his sack totals will go up from what they were with the Bears the last few years. And maybe, and I don't know about their depth at that position. I don't know if they have a third pass rusher. I don't know the team well enough to know that. But if he's part of if you have a third pass rusher that can also put pressure and you can rotate those three guys, that'll help Khalil Mack stay healthier. And when he's healthy, he's disruptive. Even if he doesn't get sacks, he will help Joey Bosa get sacks. He will help your defensive tackles get sacks. He will help if you're blitzing your linebacker or your inside linebackers. He will help them get sacks. Because that's what I saw from Chicago more than anything. His sack numbers were disappointing, but he gets pressure that makes other guys get sacks. And he does it when he's double teamed, and he ain't going to be double teamed no more, I don't think. Not consistently. So, yeah, to me, that was a phenomenal trade for the Chargers. Even though he was a disappointment for me as the Bears, and I was ready for the Bears to move on from him, I think it's a fantastic pickup, and I think you'll get more out of him. And for the value, I mean, we gave up like 3 first-round picks for him. You guys get him for a second. So the value, he doesn't even have to do what he did for the Bears to be valuable for you guys. And I think he'll do more for you guys than he did for the Bears. So that's my take. That's my Bears fan take on Khalil Mack.
All right, let's get to the Chargers draft. All right, round 1, number 17, Zion Johnson, guard out of Boston College. Definitely a very good. I mean, you got to keep this quarterback healthy. I think, especially in the long term, you should always be looking at adding good players here, and this is a really good player.
Yeah, the expectation is he steps in, starts from day one, and plays at a high level from day one, and is a future Pro Bowler.
Absolutely.
So that's the expectation around the league for him.
Yeah. Round 3, number 79, J.T. Woods, safety out of Baylor. It's a solid player. He didn't stand out when I was looking at the safeties as I don't know, in the 3rd round. I mean, I'm sure this is really good. So,
well, the interesting thing for him is I think that he pairs well with Derwin James.
Sure, okay.
I think his skill set matches well with that, and I know they have a pretty solid safety already. So I think he's giving depth. I think he's versatile. So it's a 3rd safety for you. Again, like what we talked about with the inside linebackers. The NFL is getting to the point now where it's all about your depth, and it's all about having rotations and keeping guys healthy and keeping guys fresh. And I think that he, as a 3rd safety, he can come in and give those guys a break and not have that drop off be huge once he, maybe not right out the gate, but as he learns the game, and eventually be a really good pairing next to Derwin James if the other safety doesn't work out or moves on.
All right, round 4, number 123, I got Isaiah Spiller, running back out of Texas A&M. I like Isaiah Spiller a lot. I think that this is a good person to add behind Eckler, who's really good. And I think that's a great pick there at round 4.
So it's also, in addition to Eckler, you do know that they have another running back too, right?
Who's that?
The Florida State running back that they have. Right? They got a Florida State running back, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe.
I thought so.
But regardless.
Why am I blanking on that?
I don't know.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different team. Never mind. I don't know. I should have done more research. That's pretty much always the case on these. I'm not doing my research right now. I'm relying on his. And so sometimes I might say something stupid.
I don't write down a lot of backups.
I might say something dumb that's not true. I could be thinking of a different team. I'm sorry if that's the case.
But I like Isaiah Spiller. I think he's going to be a good addition onto that team too as well. So, round 5, number 160, Otita Agbanya. Again, I mess these names up. I'm sorry. Defensive lineman out of UCLA.
I don't know much about him.
I actually don't either. UCLA has been hard to watch, so I don't know. I've tried to pay attention when the Ducks are playing them and like stuff like that, and it just I don't know. So I don't really know a lot about them, to be honest with you. And we're down to round 5, round 6. So round 6, number 214, Jazir Taylor, cornerback out of Wake Forest, and I wish I knew more about him. Don't know much about him. Round 7, number 236. Deanne Leonard, cornerback out of Ole Miss. Don't know much about him. Round 7, number 260, Xander Horvath, fullback out of Purdue.
Yeah.
He's a fullback.
I know a little bit about him. He's a fullback. And if you use a fullback in your offense, he'll probably be a solid one because he was a pretty solid fullback at Purdue.
Good.
A lost position in today's sports, especially at the collegiate level.
Yeah.
They're hard to find. I think he's a pretty solid one from what I know of him.
A lot of times they're converting tight ends into fullbacks.
And I think he actually was a tight end for a while in his career.
It makes sense. All right, Chargers starters. Obviously, you have Justin Herbert, second year in the league, threw for 5,014 yards, 38 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, had another 302 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns on the ground. That dude is an absolute stud.
He's one of these quarterbacks we talk about. The league is full of really exciting young quarterbacks to watch, high-level guys. You love him from his time at Oregon. I've grown to appreciate him in his time with the Chargers. I always like any exciting young quarterback. That always is fun to watch, even if I don't like their team. Him going up against Mahomes, him pairing up against Josh Allen. Anytime you got these young quarterbacks head-to-head, it's fun to watch. He's been fun to watch in those games. Yeah, I mean, like I said with the Phillip Rivers talk, like that was a great move to pick him up. He slid in the draft for whatever reason, and they were smart enough to not let him slide past them.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about Miami was going to pick either him or Tua, and I said that they would pick Tua and have it be a mistake that they should have picked Herbert. Obviously, the Chargers got a really good pick there because he shouldn't have been on the board. He should have been to Miami. Yeah. If you're a Miami fan and you're watching this, I personally think it was a big mistake, and I'm sure that you could probably tell that. So, at any rate, listen, I didn't know fully if he was going to be. I think that the thing with me was, like, it does seem like he had maybe a lack of passion for football a little bit, like in college, where it was like just maybe he didn't have that fire, you know what I mean, about him. I can tell you this: he looks like he's in love with the game as he's playing in the pros. So it's interesting to see. Maybe some people got in his ear and just said, "Hey, listen, it's okay to show some excitement." Maybe that was something that he just didn't do, but had it there. But he definitely looks like a different player from that standpoint in the pros. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Maybe he didn't like what was going on.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. He still played at a high level.
Maybe that wasn't. Maybe he didn't like the offense and it was boring or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It seemed like, from day one with the Chargers, he was a different guy as far as like
his energy level,
like wanting to win, showing that competitive edge.
That's right.
That he didn't necessarily show at Oregon.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. I was looking at the pictures of him, which he just got that clenched fist, and his face just looks like he's into it. You know what I mean?
He's definitely
and you didn't see that very much in Oregon.
Yeah.
You just didn't. So, at any rate, great attribute that he's added to his game. All right, running back Austin Eckler, 911 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, 70 receptions for another 647 yards and 8 touchdowns. So, I mean, he had 20 touchdowns between the air and the ground. He's a big part of this offense.
That's not bad.
No. And, I think he's an underrated running back. I get, some of the people talk about him being maybe a true running back between the tackles, but what he adds in both of those aspects, I think Eckler is a very good running back. So, and then again, they got that kid that they added there. So, and then wide receiver Keenan Allen, 106 receptions, 1,138 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
Probably one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league.
Sure.
Like, he's rarely talked about as an elite wide receiver, but whether it was Phillip Rivers or your boy, he just catches the football.
Yeah.
He just not a big touchdown guy, partially because of his frame, I think, but
reliable.
But so reliable, catches the football, makes big plays. I've seen him make catches when he's double teamed. Adjustments on the ball and bad throws. And he is got to be one of the top 10 wide receivers in the league, and he's rarely talked about like that.
Agreed. I think he's very underrated. All right, Mike Williams, 76 receptions, 1,146 yards, and 9 touchdowns. It's nice to see production like that from 2 wide receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got. The next one is Josh Palmer. He was a rookie last year. Joshua Palmer, 33 receptions, 353 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Obviously, he is the third wide receiver there. But that's a good squad. I mean, that's a solid squad. You know what I mean?
And then the addition of Gerald Everett at tight end adds another weapon to it. I think that's.
Gerald Everett, 48 receptions, 478 yards, and 4 touchdowns in Seattle last year. That had a down year.
Yeah.
Let's just face it; they weren't firing on all cylinders. I think he is definitely.
He's a good tight end.
He's a good tight end, and they still got that other kid that, it's Polymer or something like that came out of the AFL. I remember watching him and thinking that he had some really good game out there. So
I mean, they were bottom line, they were a top 10 offense last year. You would expect them to be a top 10 offense with this. And then you didn't get to the offensive line, but we know they added the rookie that we talked about, and obviously their offensive line was good enough to be a top offense last year.
It's Rashawn Slater, Matt Feeler, Corey Lindsley, Zion Johnson, and Storm Norton.
Yeah,
I know Rashawn Slater was the addition that they had, right? No, Slater's been on their team. He's good though. That's a good team.
Yeah, so I think offense, you would expect it to be top 10 offense again. Now, we talked about it in some of these other videos. It's hard to really say, they could get better and be 10th because of how
we'll get into that
some of these teams are.
The defense. Yeah, you're not lying. That is for sure. All right. Left defensive end, we got Jerry Tillery, 51 tackles, 4.5 sacks, guy that came out of Notre Dame a couple years ago. I like Tillery. I would have thought that he'd had a little bit higher production on it, but I guess, like you said, I mean, when you have good players all over, it's, I don't know.
He'll benefit from having Khalil Mack.
He will, for sure. That's what I'm trying to say is, I guess, like he hasn't really lived up to as much as I thought he would do, but it is probably going to improve. Austin Johnson, 72 tackles. He's a nose tackle, 72 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, 1 pass deflect. He come over from the Giants, so I think that's going to be a solid addition. You know what I mean? Like space eater there.
Yeah.
Sebastian Joseph Day, right defensive end, 38 tackles, 3 sacks. He come over from the Rams. Joey Bosa, 51 tackles, 10.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles. I absolutely love his forced fumbles. That's a part of Joey Bosa's game that I absolutely love. I think, again, to the point that we said earlier, the mixture of him and Khalil Mack is going to improve. I think that they're both going to be wreaking havoc, and it is going to be very fun to watch.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I'll wait till
Kenneth Murray Jr., 31 tackles. He had an injury, so he is their starter, but he was injured last year. He had injury issues. Obviously didn't do too much.
He's young. He's still growing. I think long term he's going to be a good player.
Yeah, he's out of Oklahoma, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long term he's going to be a good player.
I thought I recognized him. Yeah, he was really good. He was good in college. All right, Drew Tranquil at right inside linebacker, 76 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 pass deflect.
Yeah. And then Benoit obviously is the depth there that maybe overtakes one of those two guys possibly.
True. I would see Drew Tranquil being the guy that he could be taking.
Yeah, or maybe he's just your third, but either way, that's a nice rotation
for
the inside linebacker.
It really is. All right, and then obviously Khalil Mack at linebacker here, 19 tackles, 6 sacks, 1 forced fumble for the Bears, but he had injury problems last year.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, yeah, it's.
I want to say it was only in like, how many games did he play?
Yeah, it was limited, and the 6 sacks, like this is what I'm saying. Like,
in a short period of time.
He is so disruptive, and if he's healthy, and look, I can tell you, there's been a lot of social media talk from Khalil Mack. He is fired up. He was not happy that he got traded, and he is fired up. He hears the talk from Bears fans that we didn't get the return on investment that we thought, and he's going to go in there and with everything he has to stay healthy and to wreak havoc. And I think him and Bosa, I mean, like, well, we talking about it when we talk about the other team. This division is loaded with pass rushers, but I don't know if anybody in the league has a better pair than that. There's some maybe as good, but I don't think anybody has a better pair than those two. I expect havoc to be wreaked, and
will be wreaked.
And especially when you add that offense, you're going to have leads, and let those guys just go because teams are going to have to throw to come from behind. I mean, that's scary. That's scary.
And then you get into, like, this is, you're talking about last year. They were 30th in points allowed. Points allowed. They improved this. Their safeties here. They're 4. Okay, in the backfield. The left cornerback, Asante Samuel Jr., who was a rookie last year, had 43 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 11 pass deflects.
And you would expect him to be better.
And expect him to be better. Absolutely.
And like I told you, I loved him at Florida State. He was
really well.
a good player for us at Florida State.
Yeah, and he looks like he's got a lot of potential of growth, for sure. Then their safety, Derwin James Jr., who was injured last year, he did have injury issues. 118 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 5 pass deflects. He's an absolute beast, and they missed him a lot last year.
And most teams, he's the best defensive player for most teams in the league. Not this one, but for most teams in the league, he's the best defensive player. And when you let him have the flexibility that he has, he can do pass game, run game. When you have that pressure and he can just ball hawk, man, like, I expect him to have a huge year with the pressure that they're going to get out of those two guys we talked about earlier. If he's healthy, he's going to have a monster year.
Pressure coming from is the best thing for the secondary that you could possibly have, and this is a great secondary.
Yeah.
All right, Nasser Adderley, 99 tackles, half sack, 5 pass deflects, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. Maybe the weakest part of the secondary here, but he's still a solid player.
Yeah.
And then J.C. Jackson, who obviously we talked about. 58 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 8 interceptions, 1 touchdown, and 23 pass deflects. A huge amount of pass deflects.
Yeah. So we're talking, like we said, this is the whole thing, right?
8 interceptions, 23 pass deflects.
I mean, this is the whole thing. So you got a massively improved secondary with an improved pass rush off a team that already had good pass rush.
Yeah.
And an offense that gets leads early. That's a recipe for lots of wins.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to, we're going to wrap this up and get into just real quick overall thoughts on the team and the status of them. And, like, again, the conference, the division is so loaded that it is just, you don't know. Like, they could be first, they could be fourth. I mean, just to be honest about it, just being honest about it. All 4 of those teams in that division, and we'll get into these teams, they're scary and they're dangerous, and to anybody outside the division, these guys are the guys that you're looking to beat because they are ahead of you. You know what I mean? And to have them all in the same division is something I've never seen. I don't think it's ever been like just that many powerhouses in one division that looks so good. But yeah, I mean, the Chargers, in my opinion, just feel like they're at the best shape out of all of them for me overall when you look from start to finish. You know what I mean? And obviously you have to see it first before that becomes reality, but on paper and just the feel I have about that, I really hope that my boy Hubert does not go through what Philip Rivers went through playing at a high level and never gets to that Super Bowl. And I think that they're doing everything they can to make sure that is a reality.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so my thoughts are, I still would probably, we'll talk about it coming up, KC's video. Probably still lean towards KC being the best.
It might be my bias.
So close.
It might be my bias. That's what I'm saying.
But the bottom line is this. We talked about Buffalo. We both like Buffalo a lot. We talked about Cincinnati having that potential with the young gun that they have. We're going to be talking about it down the road with your Colts. And then there's this division.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of teams that all have their ceiling is winning a Super Bowl. They all
Don't forget about the Patriots too.
Oh, and the Patriots, yes, absolutely. We talked. Yeah, you're right. So you got. I mean, that's a lot of. Obviously, one of those teams that we think could win the Super Bowl ain't even gonna make the playoffs. Ain't even gonna make the playoffs. That's how loaded this conference is.
Yeah.
So, if you're a Chargers fan, get ready. You're gonna have fun. It's gonna be a great season. There's gonna be big games left and right. But you might not win. You might win the Super Bowl, and you might not even make the playoffs. I find that hard to believe that they want to make the playoffs. But there's so many good teams in that conference. It's possible. And look, injuries are going to play the biggest. Like we already talked about. Derwin James has always had injury issues. Khalil Mack has had injury issues. Okay, Keenan Allen, great receiver. He's getting older. Never know when those injuries could come. So. Yeah, on paper, they look like arguably the best team in their conference or in their division, which makes them arguably the best team in their conference, which makes them arguably the best team in football. But 1 or 2 injuries, and you go from the top of that division to the bottom of that division like that because it's so loaded.
It's so true.
And so that's if they stay healthy. Ooh. But even if they're healthy, Buffalo, Kansas City, Indianapolis, it's gonna be crazy. So they're right there. I agree with you. I know with your love for the quarterback, you want to see them.
And I could definitely say that. I would say that because of how close these teams are, absolutely my bias probably plays into that. Yeah, but I do feel like, you know what I mean?
No, but honestly, they've won me over. I was skeptical of your guy. And just watching games with you, they've won me over. He's won me over. He's a beast. I mean, this is honestly probably the golden age of quarterbacks for the NFL. It hasn't been this way. To have so many good young quarterbacks, and that's what it takes. If you got one of those guys, you're competitive, and you got one of those guys if you're a Chargers fan. And so, hey, Super Bowl
for years.
But I think you cannot have a Super Bowl or bust mentality because of just how, understand you're going to be in that Super Bowl conversation for the next 4 or 5 years. Hopefully, you win it this year if you're a Chargers fan. But if you don't
Patience.
know that it's still there, there is a little bit of a window now with Khalil Mack and Bosa and Derwin James where they're not going to be beasts forever, but they put themselves in position for the next 3 to 5 years to be in that conversation year in year out. Loaded conference, but I like what they've done.
Yeah.
And I think it's right now looks like one of the better organizations in football with the decision making they've made, how they've made the right moves. It feels like the right moves. And yeah, so I think that's the bottom line, right? Like this is what we're talking about with this offseason stuff. How does the organization look? How did they do? They did what they needed to do to improve the weakness that they had in the secondary and adding a pass rusher to complement Bosa. And then drafting a guy that shores up the offensive line to keep the offense plugging along. So I think, an A grade. I think an A grade in the off season and high expectations for the season. One of the teams I can't wait to see play. We'll be watching a lot of them. We'll be talking a lot about them, I'm sure, when the season starts.
Absolutely.
And that's what you want if you're a Chargers fan. You want to be in those conversations. You want other teams' fans to be talking about how good you are, and that's where you're at right now. Enjoy it while you have it, because you definitely have it right now.
All right, well, thank you for giving us a watch, and I hope you got something out of this. If you did, give us a like, give us a subscribe.
Don't forget to comment. We love those comments. Well, I love those comments. He likes the comments when you agree with us. Maybe gets a little surly when you don't. But hey, it's fun to have him get surly. He'll come at you. Let's do it. Let's have some comments.
All right, thank you for giving us a watch, and we look forward to seeing you next time.